servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve, Ramon, and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramon. I'm so thrilled to have you join us today. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the idea of doing business and living life with a purpose, serving others, and yes, achieving success. We believe that when we approach our work and our lives with a servant's heart, we can truly make a difference. We created this show for you because we want everyone to be motivated, inspired, and educated to make an impact in your world. While listening to this show today, I want you to think about how you're going to serve today and what impact you'll create. Today's episode is proudly sponsored by our phenomenal partner, Pantheon Alliance. Imagine being part of an exclusive community of high-income, successful business owners and entrepreneurs from diverse industries across the world together to build your thought leader platform and grow your network. With that, and if you have any questions about the Pantheon Alliance, please reach out. You'll have all my information in the show notes. With that being said, we talked impact, we talked servant. I am pumped, like I told my guests before the show. I love having young people in business on this show to prove that you don't have to be 63 like me, 50, 55, that you can run a business and still do quite well. Hey, Harrison, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So Gun Monkey Productions, I got to find out where that came from.
Yeah, that's me. It was kind of one of those things. I'll tell you, as an author, I always struggle coming up with the title because you work on something for months on end or a year or whatever it is, and it's hard to put like 2 or 3 words in front of it, right? So I've always struggled with that part of the creative process, but this kind of just, came to me. If you read my books, you'll find that there's a pattern. There's lots of guns. There's lots of blood, lots of violence. It's not mindless. There's pretty solid plots in all these stories. And that's really, what I work around, but I really enjoy writing that kind of tough, gritty adventure. So I was like, gun is probably going to be in there. And then, I don't know, monkeys are just cool, right? Like I think it makes for a neat logo. So I kind of saw the image of the logo. If you haven't seen it, it's a chimp smoking a cigar holding an Uzi, and it's pretty unique. I've never seen anything like it. My uncle is a professional graphic designer. So, back in the day before I published my first book, I was like, hey, you want to design something for me? And he was, of course, all over that. And we got the same logo today. It's on my coffee mug. It's on my books. It's all over the place. So
I got to tell you, that logo, I just saw Deadpool last night in Wolverine.
Okay.
Your logo needs to be in that movie because that's what I thought of when I saw your logo.
Hey,
a monkey with a guy. It's just crazy and awesome.
I'll take it.
So we talked in the green room before the show. You're 21. People are out trying to find a career, maybe video games, whatever. You became an author, which is very rare. What was your inspiration?
I would say, it's not just one thing. I don't think it's ever one thing, but I started writing during COVID. There's nothing to do, and that gave me something to do. Like you said, video games. I was all over the video games. Got bored of that pretty quick. You're locked in your house for however many weeks. And so I started writing during COVID, and I found it was a great way to express creativity in a medium that I was, found that I was pretty good at. Like, I tried doing all the other arts and I loved it, but I wasn't good at it. And so, I'm competitive. I like being good at stuff. And so, I started writing and I was like, this is, pretty smooth. And during COVID, I wrote my first book in, I think it was 2 to 3 months. Like it was pretty short time frame. And that was my longest book I've ever written just because it was full of so much of everything. Like that's never going to see the light of day. That's stuffed away in a closet somewhere. But yeah, like I just sat down at my desk. That was my for fun thing to do. And I at the time I was reading a lot. I was reading a lot of Dennis Lehane. He's, if you ever listen to any other shows I've been on, I always talk about Dennis Lehane. He's one of the greatest, fiction writers in my opinion. He's so good. Mystic River, Gone Baby Gone, Shutter Island. Those are all great novels. You can just, read them one after the other and not put down his work. So I was reading a lot of Dennis Lehane. I wanted to write like Dennis Lehane. And so that kind of became the goal. I was like, I wonder if I can write something that's cool like this, And so I just started dwelling on stories. And I realized after, a short amount of time that I didn't really have a problem coming up with new stories. It was pretty easy for me to just keep generating books. And as I like to say, when I finish a manuscript, I save the Word document, send it to the editor, and then I open up a new Word document and start on the next book. So it's just back to back to back for me. And I think a lot of that just came from what I was consuming at the time and just encouragement from family and friends to keep plugging away.
Dennis Lehane, some of his books are movies now, aren't they? Am I thinking the right
Oh
guy?
yeah.
Gone
Yep.
Baby Gone's a movie, right?
Gone Baby Gone was a huge movie. Mystic
Yep.
River was really big with
That's
Sean
the
Penn.
yeah.
Yeah, I think Clint Eastwood actually directed that, and then
Yeah.
Shutter Island, Martin Scorsese, Leo DiCaprio. So he's got some big books turned movies out there, and but the books are fantastic. That's one thing that really stands out about his work is you can watch the movie first, read the book, and still really enjoy the book because it's so good. It's so good.
And that
So
doesn't happen. I know people
no,
all the
no,
time.
that's
I
pretty
read
rare. That's pretty
right,
rare.
very rare. I'm glad you said
It's
that.
the story's spoiled, but in those cases, I guess the prose and the literary approach he takes make it very, very interesting
He's in the
still.
movie.
Yeah.
So you're 21. We know focus and attention span at a younger age is a little more difficult. I mean, even at 60s and 63s. Crazy enough, you've written 3 books. So this is not a one-hit wonder. You've had 3 and you're writing more. How do you keep your focus?
I think it's just consistency. I mean, I think discipline is probably a little too heavy-handed of a word because it's not, I think discipline, I think I've heard someone say it's doing something you hate like it's something you love. I love writing, so it's not hard to come home, from my day job or whatever and sit down and type away at the keyboard for a few hours because I just enjoy it so much. There's parts of it I don't like, and those are parts, take a little longer and they're harder to knock down, but I love writing. I love the process. And I think that contributes to the consistency and the motivation, I guess, to keep going. Like it's not really about money for me. I'm not a New York Times bestseller or put it, any one of those lists. I've never made a list. We'll just put it that way. So I've never made a list, but I keep writing at the same pace and I keep publishing at the same pace because I really enjoy it. And there's nothing quite like getting that first copy of the book in the mail after it's been printed. It's a pretty neat, unique experience. So all those things just help me stay, on point and really dedicated.
That's why you have a servant's heart. The money comes, it comes. If it doesn't, you're entertaining people, you're bringing them value. That's what a servant heart does. What comes from
Exactly.
that is what comes from that. What are the 3 books? And I know we're video. If you have them in front of you, you can show them. But talk about the 3 books and the mission behind each one.
Yeah, so the first book is Watch It Burn that came out in
Hmm.
I think it was February of 2023, so last year. Watch It Burn is about a crime family in the 1980s based out of southern Italy, and they're drug traffickers. And they run this big ring that goes all the way down in Colombia, all the way to southern Italy. So they're kind of an international organization, and the story evolves from like the classic like War of the Families mob story to more of a deep dive into the family's history and a whodunit on basically they figure out that someone has infiltrated the family and is betraying them and slowly giving them away to their enemies, and it becomes a really personal issue for the main character. And it just kind of takes him on this journey of slowly losing trust, first having all the trust and some of the trust, and then suddenly he's alone, on this mental island, and it becomes a big issue for him. So that's Watch It Burn. That was a fun one to write. I wrote that in 4 months, I think, while I was living in Washington, D.C. Had it edited and then got it published. After that came November's Whisper. I have that one next to me. So looks just like this. You can see there's some tension in that cover. It's a really neat story. I think so. I was listening to these audiobooks, and when you finish an audiobook, it'll stop and then it'll start the next one. And I was listening, I don't even remember what I was listening to. Could have been Stephen King, who knows? Could have been Dennis Lehane. I don't remember, but it went into this next book called Mindhunter by John Douglas and Mark Olshaker. And I was like, I didn't buy this. Like, I don't know what this is. So I was about to turn it off, and it got really interesting really fast. And that's about FBI profilers and how the FBI developed this behavioral science program that became the investigative support unit to catch serial offenders around the nation. And so I was like, you know what, this is really interesting. Listen to the whole book. Found out he's got 4 or 5 more books just like it. Listen to all those, just detailing the process and how the unit evolved. So I went through all those books, and by about the third one out of 5, I was convinced. I was like, this has to be a story. So this was at the tail end of Watch It Burn while I was writing that. So I knew what my next story was going to be. I got right into November's Whisper. So November's Whisper follows an FBI profiler by the name of Henry Haynes. He is a traveling agent. These profilers work alone. They're not attached. They're in this unit, and sometimes they rely on each other for reinforcement in terms of just the development of the profile. But for the most part, he's traveling around the country, just like his other fellow profilers, solving not solving these crimes, but creating profiles to help the local law enforcement solve these crimes. And in this specific story, he ends up in a small town in northern Massachusetts called Ipswich, where there's been a series of murders, and he helps the local police develop a profile on this murderer. And it's a very interesting deep dive into real criminal investigations from the 1980s. This one's set in 1983. So a very interesting perspective, I believe, because I did so much research on this. You don't find a lot of, professional, all-out authors that are winning awards doing this much research, let alone, an independent 21-year-old. So, but I knew, if I'm going to tell a story like this, I have to do it right. And so I interviewed, countless law enforcement personnel, active, retired, people that fit the bill for my book, people that don't, just trying to get all different perspectives. I even got a hold of a former head of a state police office. So that was very interesting. Just getting a lot of different insights, that, and then the reading, the studying, and actually visiting Ipswich for a few days, which was just amazing. So through all that, I was able to develop a really unique story, a really unique crime thriller. And, I think it's my best out of the 3. And then most recently, I published Amongst Thieves, which is a Western. So we're kind of deviating from the classic 1980s stuff I was writing. I grew up on Westerns. My whole family loves Westerns. I watch spaghetti Westerns all the time. The good ones, the bad ones, they're all fun to watch. And so I decided I wanted to write a Western a while ago. This story is actually a revamp of one of the ones I wrote before I started publishing. So there's a lot different, but the bare bones are still there. And it follows a gang of thieves that robs a train in Montrose, Colorado, and their escape through the San Juan Mountains as they're being pursued by a private detective agency. Along the way, they stop at a cabin, and as the gunfire, and like I said, lots of guns, lots of shooting, lots of killing. As the gun battle goes down, they end up fleeing from this cabin, and just with no other option, they take the 17-year-old daughter of the family at that cabin with them. She's the last survivor. If she stays, she dies. If she goes with them, who knows? Because they're hardened criminals, just evil people. And so the story becomes about her trying to take her fate into her own hands and escape these mountains alive somehow. And as the days go on, it becomes less and less likely that she's going to be able to do that. So it sort of follows that slow burn progression as they move through the mountains. And it follows that young lady. So those are my 3 books. They're all
Amazing.
available on Amazon, on my website. So
yeah, go to Amazon. We'll get the link out there. It's amazing how well you know your books. I mean, you didn't stop a beat. You know exactly the plot and all that. What's amazing to me is the detail. You went to Ipswich yourself to see what the city was. You're right. Not a lot of authors would do that. What motivates you to do that?
being different, not being
Okay.
different so that I can, stand out as like better, I guess. It's just, I want my work to have, to be of uncompromising quality, I guess, and to to just do the appropriate research. I was telling some of the law enforcement guys I'd talked to, I want them to be able to read the book and go, yeah, like he got a lot of the small stuff right, a lot of the investigative pieces right, the process is right. But this part at the end, that's a little bit of a stretch, but it's really cool. Like I want them to be like, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
And so that involves, knowing the area, knowing the town. The last thing I'd want is for someone who lives there to pick it up and be like, this doesn't sound like my place at all.
Yeah.
And that was the case because I was about 3/4 of the way through the book when I visited. It's much different in person than looking at it on Google Maps or reading about it. And so I changed a lot and made it really feel like I'm confident. If you're from Ipswich, Massachusetts, and you read my book, you're gonna be walking your streets wondering, when these characters pass through. So
Your dedication's unbelievable, Harrison.
yeah.
Man, it's I mean, in a lesson here, audience, if you could do that kind of dedication in your work, whether it's writing a book, selling SaaS tech products or whatever, you enjoy doing it. So you found passion. That's why your dedication to do this right is important, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The passion is a huge piece. I couldn't imagine, just deciding I want to be an author and deciding I want to write books. And like, it's just more of just a path that I'm on, as maybe corny as that sounds, but it's a path I'm on, and it's super easy to walk in terms of, putting all that effort into the books, and it's rewarding. Selfishly, you hear the compliments, people like, oh yeah, like, I felt like I was there, or, I felt like I really know this character, or, I didn't know these things about, an investigation. Stuff like that is just super neat to hear. It's fulfilling, knowing that your work has
Oh,
impacted people like that, in a positive way, where, it's not just another canned fiction novel that someone's spending, $20 on. It's actually a really enjoyable form of entertainment.
yep. Somebody's on their cruise and reading your book in
Exactly.
the sun,
Yep.
enjoying you. I love that. And by the way, it can be corny, but if it's true, it's even better.
There you
So
go.
I,
Yeah.
I love that. So one of the favorite questions I want to ask you, I've been thinking about this for 2 days before this show. Why haven't you written? Because I'm a big future guy.
Yep.
No modern or future uh, period books. Why haven't you written any of those yet?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, a very good question. I think I will eventually. I'm not limiting, like, hopped into Western. I'm not limiting myself to a genre. I have some more horror thriller ideas for down the road in a few years. So there's things that I'm going to dive into. Future is definitely going to be one of them. I don't see myself doing a lot, but maybe a couple. It's just fun to play with those different concepts. Personally, I like the 80s because it's a cheat code. It's modern enough that there's some technology, but there's no cell phones, so you don't have to worry about, you can create some really tense situations without text messages. You take text messages out of the equation, and all of a sudden someone's, being stranded on the side of the road is an adventure. So yeah, I like it for those reasons. I like it on the investigation side of things because you can be a little more loose with what happens at the crime scene because there's no DNA technology back then. The first DNA tool wasn't, I don't think, used for catching a criminal until 2003, so the year I was born. There's no technology like that. It just makes it, I feel like, a more interesting story. You got to put some of that harder core detective work, up there. Like I was talking to a guy who he was in his prime, late 80s, early 90s as a homicide investigator. And he told me, he's like, the kids today, they just talking about, 40-year-old detectives, right? But he's like, the kids today, they're just relying on technology way too much. They're not actually looking at the people. They're not looking at the victims. They're not looking at, what caused this person to commit the crime. They're just trying to get a sample off of a wall and send it into a lab and just hope that pings somebody for them. And I thought that was interesting, and it kind of reaffirmed my choice of, choosing time periods that are, bygone days. But no, to answer your question, the future stuff will come eventually. I just haven't gotten to it yet. I think that'll be a whole new genre. It would be interesting to get involved in world building. That'll be a lot of fun. That's not something I've ever done before. I just kind of ride off the coattails of history. So,
Well, and I love what you do because it's what desire, what comes up. Like you said, a cowboy, country, not country, a cowboy book comes out and you just wrote it. So it'll eventually come. You don't just go, overthink. Should I do country? Should I do modern? Should I
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
horror? This. You kind of have a system. Well, you do have a system, not kind of.
Oh yeah.
One question I have, it's a little selfish, and I'll tell you after the show. Would you like one of these books to become a movie?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the best candidate for a movie would be amongst Thieves because it's the most blockbuster-esque story. It's just a run and gun western, just like there's not a dull moment in that book. It's constant action. November's Whisper would be a great 8 episode miniseries. And real so I've said this on a couple shows now, but I'll say it on yours too, so your folks get the scoop as well. November's Whisper is getting a sequel at the end of this year. So Henry will be the profiler again, but we're going to be in a different small town, and I'm going to write a few more of these FBI profiling books because I think it's a really unique perspective to have Henry as the lens into these small towns. Because Henry, you trust Henry, you like Henry, you've read about him for quite a while, but then you get to turn your attention on these other detectives and other characters, other villains in the story that makes it interesting because you get that, you have that firm foundation of like, I can trust Henry. I know what he's doing. I know where we're headed with him. Now let's learn about these other people. And so it kind of lowers your guard enough to where you can enjoy the new characters. So I'd love to have November's Whisper as an 8 episode miniseries. Season 1, season 2, Henry's in Walker, Minnesota, right? Season 3, he's in San Francisco. And I could change some stuff up to make it really interesting, like with the Dennis Lehane books
Yeah.
turned into movies, where it's still interesting to watch, even if you've read the book and vice versa. So yeah, absolutely. I'm very visual with my thought process and my writing. If you read my books, you understand that they're very visual novels. So converting them into movies wouldn't be hard for anybody, especially
You're
not AI. AI could probably do it pretty quick.
Yeah, you're probably right. You've been visual the whole show. It's amazing how you portray image with your words. That's why you're a great author. We'll get to the end here. What tip would you give a 21 to 35-year-old that goes, man, I love what Harrison's doing. I want to write my own book.
I would say, yeah, I've given this advice before. I would say start today. I've heard I don't know, probably 3 or 4 different people that like, it's not like people are just coming to me for advice because I'm, so great or whatever. But people ask like, how'd you do it? You're young. I'd like to try. And I say, that's awesome, but you have to start today because if you don't start today, you won't start.
Yeah.
And people kind of look at you funny, like, no, I'm motivated. I'll do it. I'm like, I don't think you will. You have to start today. And like I even had one person be like, "Hey, I'm going on this trip in 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I'm just gonna write on the trip." I'm like, you're not gonna have any momentum going into that. You're gonna sit down, write 500 words, and then go wakeboarding or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think starting immediately is huge. Understanding that it's a really low barrier to entry. To publish a book, if you find a good editor and a good cover artist, it'll cost you less than $5,000 to publish the book. Amazon will let you publish it for free. So pretty much anyone can get into this if they have the forethought. They set up a little savings for that. And that's if you buy like a professional editor. If you have a friend who's an English teacher, right? You don't need to spend $3,000 on an editor or $2,000 on an editor, right? If you have a friend that's an artist or a graphic designer, you don't need to spend that on the cover. But so there's ways to do it. The barrier of entry is really low. Amazon self-publishing portal is super easy to use. They make it easy to use because they charge you a lot of money on the back end when you sell books, but it's super easy to use. Anyone could do it. So I think it's not as hard as people think. I'm not conventionally published. I have my own publishing company that's doing pretty well, and yeah, I don't need to be conventionally published. We'll see. Maybe that'll happen one day. Maybe it won't. But yeah, barrier to entry super low. So get started today. And write those chapters. And then once you find a good story that's worth telling, just commit to it. Don't get halfway through. Everybody does this. It happens to me where you get half to 3/4 of the way through and you start thinking about the next project. You got to finish off that first project because otherwise you'll never finish anything. So everything I've started writing to date, I've finished, whether or not I was happy with it or not. I've finished it because you have to see it through to the end, and you may find yourself at the end of it going, you know what, this wasn't as bad as I was thinking. Maybe we can go over this a couple more times, get it edited, and get it published.
Sage advice. 40, 50, 60-year-olds need to hear that advice because it happens with business owners I work with every day. Indecision, inaction. I'm going to write a book. Look at you wrote it. You wrote a bunch of before it even get published until you wrote these three. So you're a perfect example. So we come to the end here, but I love asking this fun question.
Awesome.
Okay, you're going into a restaurant.
Okay.
There's a table of four set up for you.
Yeah.
You're going to sit in one of the chairs. In the other three chairs, dead or alive, who will sit in those chairs? Why are they sitting in those chairs? And what food would you order?
Okay. Okay, interesting. Man, they got three chairs.
You got
Chairs
three.
to fill. I would say just because I'm working on these crime books right now, I would do Ken Landwehr. He was the detective on the BTK task force in Wichita, Kansas. I'd do Ken Landwehr. I would do let's see, man, this is tough.
Good. It's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's gonna take me a minute. I'd really like to talk to Ronald Reagan. I think that would be interesting. Talk about 80s, right? That would be super cool. I'm not sure how he and, Ronald and Ken would get along, but it'd be interesting to have him at that table. And then, man, this is, Nick Pitt. I can't pronounce his last name very well. Nick Pizzicato. He wrote True Detective,
Oh,
seasons
yeah.
1, 2, and 3. So I would love to talk to him about season 1. We can skip right over season 2 because it was terrible. But season 1 and 3 we could talk about. I think that'd be really interesting. And then we'd have to get Italian food. I absolutely love Italian food. So some spicy rigatoni would be perfect.
Love it. I'm Italian. When you talked about your first book, I'm like leaning in like
There you
mafia.
go.
Okay, I love it
Yeah.
because I love Godfather and all that. It's so cool. That's a great table. I'm just thinking. And by the way, the Reagan movie's coming out. Dennis Quaid's playing Ronald Reagan.
I'm going to see that. Yep.
I'm going to. I love Ronald Reagan, so I'm with you there. It's amazing. Yeah. I'm 63. You're 21. We can love history like that.
There you go.
It's great.
Yeah.
So, how can people support you? Reach out to you, get the books.
So you can get my books on my website, which is officialharrisonstockland.com. My name is, down at the end of this little banner here. Harrison is spelled conventionally. Stockland is Stockeland. So that's officialharrisonstockland.com. And then you can get everything on Amazon, Kindle. It's all on Kindle. It's all on hardcover, paperback. We don't have audiobooks, but you can get it all on Amazon. If you look at my name again, Harrison Stockland, you can click on my author profile, give me a follow. That'll show you stuff when it comes out. I try to do 2 books a year. So far, I've been hitting that goal each year. So
good job.
That's pretty solid. So at the very least, you'll get 2 books a year. Maybe some extra bonus material if I come out with it. But yeah, you go to those 2 places to get the books. If you have any comments about the books, please leave a review on Amazon and Goodreads. You can also send me an email at harrison@stocklandbooks.com. And I will try my best to respond to you. And I'd love to hear what you have to say. So
yeah, please reach out. This guy's brilliant. He's 21 going on 63. So he probably passed me up. He's got an old soul we talked about before the show. God bless you, man. Keep going. I'm here to support you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being on. And you're one of the best guests I've had, to be honest.
That's really neat. Thanks.
No, it's 450 shows. I'm like, I wish we could do an hour, but I'm going to have you back if you're willing.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to come back.
Yeah, let's come back and have you in. And don't forget my TV show, Together We Serve. It's every Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. And as always, me and Harrison, thank you so much for watching and listening to this podcast. And we'll see you on the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart.